This is exactly what Trump and Elon and Vivek need to do in order to succeed. I'm going to share with you one of the most important pieces of business advice I ever received. Hello, everyone. Dr. Chris Martenson of Peak Prosperity here. And some of you may know this. Many of you don't. I used to work in corporate finance and in the corporate world. I was a consultant for a while. And I learned a few strategy things from some of the best. Thanks, Dave. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to offer a really key free piece of advice to Trump, Elon, and Vivek, as if they need any advice from me. But you could find this exceedingly useful in your own life as well. So this is what it looks like. First, we start with this, the idea that there was this Trump mandate winning the House, the Senate. There's a lot of red on there. And so with that, here's what was actually happening. People were actually voting against certain things, voting against race and wokeness and gender ideologies, open borders, deep state bureaucratic actions that looked highly partisan and very un-American, mainstream media, constant gaslighting and bias, censorship, anti-First Amendment trends, all of that stuff, medical tyranny, toxic food, and this Americans Last policy stuff, as recently exemplified just today by Biden heading over to Africa and promising $1 billion to help people recover from deadly floods over there while still doing nothing for the people of Western North Carolina. In fact, being inhibitory and impeding. So this is what we were voting against, but we were also voting for a bunch of things, and I'll tell you what those are in just a minute. But first, that means a whole new strategic shift. If you want to get rid of this stuff and you want to go in a new direction, it means that a new strategy is going to be put in place. There's a new vision for America. Now, here's what a strategy is for a company. They're all the same. There's lots of complicated ones. You could learn the McKinsey consulting method, the Baines, Booz Allen, whatever. Here we go. A strategy is knowing where you want to go and how you're going to get there. That's it. It's a vision and resources. So once you lay out the vision, well, that's important, but now the real struggle begins, because as soon as you lay out your vision, well, I'm going to introduce you to the strategy adoption framework. I'm going to tell you why this may not succeed. And first, we have to understand that when you put a new strategy out, people are going to fall into one of these four boxes. First, they're either going to be for or against your new strategy. Hey, some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. They are going to fight it. And further, we might notice that these people could either be out in the open with their support or out in the open and being against, or they could be hidden. They could be covert. Now, people are going to fall into one of these four boxes. So if you are in box one, you're out in the open and you're for the new strategy, hey, you are going to be welcome in the fold of the new strategy that's coming along. So if you're in a company that's undergoing a new strategy, says, hey, we're going to try this whole new thing, you might have reservations about it, but I will tell you that the people who get on board with the new strategy who are in box one have the greatest chance of surviving if there are realignments or job cuts or anything like that happening. Now, if you're in box two, hey, these people are still okay, because you know what? Box two people, they're okay at first. But eventually they will need to move to box one, but it's totally wonderful to have people in box two because they have important things to say. They're out in the open. They're saying, hey, I don't agree with your new strategy because X, Y, and Z. This can be totally fine. In fact, this can be your red team. These are the people who can help you sharpen up what you are planning to do. Totally fine. But eventually, you can't have people like continuing to naysay against the strategy if this is the direction you're going. Okay, so a coach on a team might decide that they're doing a whole new program of how they're going to be implementing their weight training. And if you have some holdouts who are like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Well, then they're not with the program and they might not be a fit for that coach and that program. Carrying on, we're going to want to move these people to box one eventually, and they probably will. Now, how about the people who are for your strategy, but you know what? They kind of holding back. They're just hidden. They're not really pushing against you. You know what? They're fine too. Give those people a green check mark. They're for your strategy. They're not going to fight you. Even though they're hidden, eventually they are going to naturally move to box one when they see that it's safe, and that's what other people are doing. Now, the people you don't like are these people who are hidden and they're against it openly. They might look like they're for it. They claim they're for your strategy, but these are the people who are going to undermine it at the water cooler, turning in poor projects, making sure that they use whatever internal machinery to gum this up. These are the people that you are going to need to find. And in the world that I came from out in the corporations, we would call this the metaphorical public hanging. You would hold a big meeting. You'd be talking about the strategy with all of the important people. You would know that you have some box 4 people in that audience. And at some point during this meeting, everybody watching, you identify one of those box 4 people. Hey, Bob, stand up. Bob, you're out of the company. Nope, you don't even have time to go back to your desk. I have security officers here. They're going to escort you out. We'll box your stuff up, send it to you. By the way, your security clearances and passes are all revoked instantly, and you can forget about that whole pension thing, right? A big, mean public hanging of somebody who was trying to undermine you. And you do that in front of everybody, and you know what happens next? Well, you get a lot of people moving out of box 4 into some other territory, okay? So the goal here is you want them to either move to box 1 or, hey, they got to be sent packing. But those people who are in there trying to hide and undermine you, they are your worst enemies when it comes to a new strategy. So I guarantee that as Elon and Vivek start to reshape a lot of these big entities, these agencies out there, they're going to run into a lot of box 4 people. They feel entitled, entrenched, they feel covered, they feel safe from their little sniping spots, but you have to find them. You have to find them, and you got to send them packing because you need people moving into your new box. So what are these new strategic goals that we might imagine for the government? Let's imagine we're talking about the FBI, the DOJ, all these other security/intelligence agencies out there. And I say intelligence agencies because 51 of them thought it was Russian disinformation on that laptop when it wasn't. So some new goals. First, they might focus on actual domestic threats. You got to get them off of their different box. What was the strategy they were pursuing before, right? Entrapping people, manufacturing things, like just they didn't have enough to do. Well, then I guess we got too many of these people. By the time you have firemen starting fires so they can look busy in your town, you got too many firemen or something like that, or not enough fires. The problem isn't you didn't have enough fires. So we need our agencies actually focused on real, actual domestic threats. And we might also want them to operate not just within the spirit of, but the actual limits of the Constitution. If you can't do that, maybe you shouldn't be in one of these jobs, because the Constitution is the thing you're protecting. It's not any individual person in this country, although they're important. It's actually the framework that allows the people to flourish within this country. If you don't understand that, listen, maybe this isn't the right job for you, and we should get this new strategy, which is the old strategy, which is we operate within crisp, defined limits. Therefore, we're part of lawful activity and upholding the laws of the land. All right? We might also say we want vastly improved transparency and accountability, such that if somebody goes off the reservation and uses or misuses the apparatus of the state to undermine political opponents or who they perceive to be political opponents, well, they're box 4 people and they got to go one way or the other. Depoliticization, we got to end this partisan lawfare, no bueno. And now we could turn to maybe the Department of Governmental Efficiency, DOGE. What would we want there? Hey, we're going to eliminate wasteful spending, want to end the endless expansions of all the agencies out there. They only ever get bigger with more rules. We want to instill a culture of transparency. No more of this B4, B5, B6 redactions when we're just trying to find out, like, hey, Anthony Fauci, did you contribute money towards creating this thing that end up killing a lot of people around the world? We need to have these organizations remember this one thing. They have to remember who they serve. Now, this is going to be a big strategic realignment because over time, the mission of these organizations had gone to 100% away from actually serving the public, to the point that the public has to FOIA and sue to get even basic information back out of them. So this is going to be a huge strategic realignment. And there are going to be people inside this organization who are going to fight tooth and nail to not have any of these things actually happen to their agency. And if you want to increase public engagement, well, guess what? There are going to be people in there who are going to be all for that and many who are going to fight it. You want to find the people who are on your side and bring them to the fore. And then finally, Doge wants to cut wasteful expenditures. Now, this represents a startling shift in alignment from what it had grown and morphed into, wrestling it back to being something that is far more responsive, transparent, and actively, openly serving the public interest. Okay? It's going to be a fight. How do you win that fight? To accomplish all this, you just have to remember this framework. This is a shift in strategy. We want to convert as many people as possible to box one. Anybody who can't be converted to box one over time has got to go. And in particular, you're going to need to keep your eyes peeled for those box four people hiding out, undermining you, leaking things to the press, trying to make you look bad, using whatever rules they can to sort of put sand in the gears, thinking that they'll just outlast you. Hey, they only have to survive 4 years, but they're going to make it as painful as possible. Those people have to go. Show them the door, and maybe they can find something productive to do with their lives out in the public space, working for a private company, right? But they do not belong serving the public when actually they're just serving themselves in the narrow interests of whatever cubicle they occupy for whatever agency they infest. Okay, so that's what I've learned from my time in the corporate space. Understand the strategy adoption framework. Look for the people in box four, and you have to accomplish this with what are called public hangings. I mean this metaphorically, but you make an example out of these people right in front of all of their peers, and surprise, you will just see the stampede of people coming into box one, which is what we need. And we deserve a new strategy because we need a new vision and a new direction for America. Can't wait. I'm 100% behind it. That's what I've learned. All right, now I'm going to turn now for my Peak Prosperity subscribers. We got to talk about this. War is being conducted by many other means. There's now an economic war underway, and oh my gosh, the BRICS are under fire right now from Western interests. You got to check this out because, anyway, there's stuff here that's really important to know about. And for everybody else, thanks for listening, and we'll be back with our next scouting report at some point in the future. Bye for now.